Hi, welcome to the Story Hour podcast, Voices Unscripted, Stories Rewritten with your host, Sara Jaswal. Gosh, this seems so surreal. Episode 1, the pilot, we are doing this. This has been on my heart for a very long time, and I welcome everyone who will be joining, is joining, and I'm really excited for this new adventure. Also, really nervous. I have no idea what I'm doing, if I'm being really honest, but this has been on my heart for very years. And I just kept ignoring it. And now in 2025, this year, the voices were getting louder. The intuition was just speaking so clearly to me. And I want to have depth and intimacy where we can have raw, authentic, vulnerable conversations about life, about all the trials and tribulations we face, the hardships, grief, trauma, just whatever it is, what it means to be human. And I have doubted myself so much in launching this podcast. To be honest, this is probably take 100 if I'm being really honest with you. I am so nervous. I don't even know. And I've been doing videos and showing my face and putting myself out there for several years now. And I definitely have taken a step back, but this is just something else. I have been in it. The universe is testing me like no tomorrow. But there's also a big part of me that's really excited, that's really ready to expand, to grow, to put myself out there into the world, to be able to share my wisdom, my gifts, my inspiration, my education, my training, all of it encompassed together to really create change in the world. And that's what this whole thing is about. And so I'll be honest, I don't know what I'm doing. This is my first go at this. I've been researching on my own and doing all the things, but I'm just going to put that out there because we're going to mess up together. You and I, this is a space, grab a coffee, grab a drink, whatever it is. We're just going to chat. We're going to have real life, honest conversations, heart-centered connections. And yes, I will be doing solo episodes as well, but I also am creating this space to bring guests onto my show to be able to speak to the challenges that they faced in their life and what that was like, to bring awareness to it, to normalize that we all go through something, and then also to inspire you and empower you to take back control of your life. Because this whole Story Hour, my mission, my work here on earth is rooted in the essence of post-traumatic growth. I firmly believe in post-traumatic growth. I believe that we can overcome anything that life throws our way. Is it going to be easy? No, but I definitely believe that we can overcome anything. And it's going to look different for everyone. Everyone's story is going to be unique to their own. But there is so much power in just sharing our lived experiences to normalize, validate, and to really inspire us to take a look at our life and really unpack that and to see where can we make changes. We do have the ability to rewrite our stories time and time again. And so this is what that's about. Again, the tagline, everything has been very intentional about this podcast. The title of it, the tagline, Voices Unscripted, Stories Rewritten, is that I don't want to be censored. I want this to be off social media, the whole 30-second clips, like that dopamine hit that everyone's chasing these days. I'm not about that. And so I really wanted to create a space that was offline, off social media, where I can honestly come here, talk about whatever, anything I want, and not be restricted to the algorithm, to timing. I really crave depth and intimacy in my life. That's both personally, that's both professionally. And so this is what I'm trying to create here as well. And so it being offline and creating this podcast was the big vision of that. Is I want to have conversations. I want to bring people on. I want to bring you on. I want to have conversations. I want you to be able to feel comfortable and be able to show up and share your story, and also to let us know how you were able to rebuild your life in whatever way that looked like. And so I'll be talking more about that, but that's really what this podcast is going to be about: raw, authentic, heartfelt conversations, heart-centered connections rooted in the essence of post-traumatic growth. If you've been following me for a long time, you know that my background is as a therapist. I'm also a coach. I'm also a grief educator. I do specialize as a grief and loss practitioner. However, I just want to make it very clear that this podcast isn't solely about grief and loss. It's going to be obviously interwoven within all the conversations I'm going to be having on this. It's a big part of my own personal life, which I will get into my story in this episode later on. But I really just wanted to make that clear because it's not just about grief and loss. This is about all things life in general. And grief it's connected into all of our stories, whether we know it, whether we see it or recognize it. There's so much grief in it. So we definitely will be talking about grief and loss. But I just wanted to let everyone know that it's not solely a grief and loss podcast. We're just gonna go with it. Again, I have not scripted anything, and yes, I will make mistakes along the way, and I'm not perfect. I am leaning into this, and we're gonna do this together. And I think that's the other big part of what I want this show to be about, is really talking about the real life shit that we all go through, the insecurities, the self-doubt, the fear, the anxiety, doing things that are out of our comfort zone, but are things that we want to and should lean into, because that's where growth and transformation lies. And so I'm going to be here honest and authentic with you because that's me. Like, there's no other way around that. And so if you've been following me for a long time, you know that about me. I'm very open and vulnerable about my struggles and, about my story. There's a lot that I do keep private and that only select few people know the full story, but mostly I'm very open, and I want this to be a space to be that too. And so this is what this is about. And just really showing up perfectly imperfect, right? Like, that's the whole point. No one has it all figured out. And even I've been doing a lot of research, a lot of just Googling and trying to figure out, like, how do you even launch a podcast? What does it entail? I put in a lot of work into it. And I've also been terrified because this is so new. This is so expanding me. I'm stepping outside my comfort zone in a level that, like, I haven't done in a very long time. Even though I've been on social media and I've been on Instagram and I've made videos and I do this, I share content, but this feels very different. This feels larger. And you know why it feels larger is because in my head, I've put people who run podcasts or who do shows like this on pedestals. Like, oh, they must be perfect. They must have it all figured out. There's no way I can amount to these top podcasts. That's deterred me so much. And even now, like, making this video, it's been on the back burner for so long. And there's so many times where I'm like, you know what, forget it. This is not for me. I'm going to fail. This isn't going to work. And I'm comparing myself to these people who have been doing this for years and years. But then I realize it's something on my heart, and we all start somewhere. I'm not trying to make it to the top of the podcast platform. And so I had to really work on that and really, like, turn inwards. And it's been very discomforting. I've had a lot of insecurities and self-doubt and just stuff come to the surface. It's been a really slow burn. This has been in the works for, honestly, since the beginning of the year, since this whole podcast idea really came in strong. I talked to a few really close friends and just really got the encouragement and the validation I was needing to, like, just lean into it. I have no idea where it's going to go. I have no idea, to be honest, what the next episode's going to be. I just know that something in my heart is so deeply calling me to do this, and I'm going to lean into it. And again, if you're looking for perfection, you're not going to find it here. That's for sure. So you might want to just keep on swiping, because that's not it. And you're not going to find that anywhere. And so I've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes to bring this forward. And it's a special date. I really had this date in mind to launch the podcast. And so just being on this, like, time crunch, because I was, like, just dragging my butt for so long to get it done. And now I'm like, okay, I really want to do this. And now I'm feeling more inspired and just empowered to do it just around this time of year. And so I'm going to get into that actually a bit into my story. And so obviously I'm recording this ahead of time, but the launch date for this podcast, the Story Hour podcast, again, this is episode 1, is June 22nd, 2025. June 22nd is a very significant date for me. If you've been following me, you know that, just with my own journey through grief, loss, life, hardships, depression, anxiety, trauma, like all the things. It started on June 22nd, 2018. So exactly 7 years ago. And so when I was creating and planning out this podcast, it was really important to me to launch it on this day because it's such a pivotal day for me. And it really defines and reflects my whole journey and where I've been, but also the story hour in general, and really rooted again in post-traumatic growth. It's a really clear reflection of that we can take anything life throws our way and we can turn it around. And even though we don't have the answers and we don't know what tomorrow holds, that it's possible. And so that was really important for me to do that. And yeah, this is it. And so again, this is my first time. I am so nervous, and I don't know, maybe I'm going to edit this out. Maybe I'm not. I have no idea. I don't even know how to edit, if I'm being really honest and transparent, but I'm learning. I'm learning along the way. This is how we do it. And so I will go into a little bit of my story now. Let's backtrack. So I mentioned that June 22nd. So I am going to share my journey, and I'm just going to share it how it was. Very raw, and it was very tender, but I was able to overcome. I am able to overcome a lot of it, but I'm still going through it. I'm still human. Again, I still struggle on the daily, and I'm just going to walk you through or talk you through what led me to be here with you today, because I think it's really important. So for those of you who don't know, I was diagnosed with a really rare chronic eye condition called gyrate atrophy, Gyrate atrophy. A lot of people ask me what the spelling is. That's what it's called. I was diagnosed in 2012. I've always had poor vision and very hypervigilant about my vision because I can't see properly since I've been younger. I've had glasses, but I was officially diagnosed in 2012 with that diagnosis. It's super rare till this day. I'm like 13 years in, and my specialist actually has no other patient with that condition, even worldwide. There's nothing out there. And so basically, I was 25 at the time, and it's super rare. There's an enzyme in my body that's not breaking down protein. And because of that, I have protein toxicity. So my protein levels, when they did the blood work, like I got tested for everything. They did so much blood work and they did so many eye tests. And so it was a lot. So my protein level came back really high. And somehow, I don't know the science behind it, but somehow that is linked to causing my retina to deteriorate. So over the course of probably my entire life, now that I've been in this journey for a while, it appears that I've had this for a long time. They say it's genetic somewhere down my family tree. My parents obviously are carriers because I got diagnosed with it and I have it. My siblings are fine, and my grandparents, like no one knows if, like, my parents don't know if their parents had it or even, their grandparents, but it's said that somewhere down the family tree that this is where it's coming from. And basically, my retina is deteriorating, has been deteriorating for probably this whole time. And it's impacting my peripheral vision. So I've lost a good chunk of my peripheral vision. And also my night vision is really damaged as well. And so I actually call myself or consider myself low vision, meaning I still have a lot of good eyesight. I can still see, I'm still independent, but my peripheral vision is damaged. And so I do struggle with seeing things in my peripheries. And then my night vision is very bad. And so that's kind of what happened. And so I went through all these testings. I got referred to genetics. I got referred to metabolics. I got referred to all these tests that were happening. And again, I was 25. I was getting worked up basically for like 6-7 months. And so the doctors were suspecting that this is what you have. We're not sure. We have to do all this testing to confirm it. And so it was August 2012 where I found out I was diagnosed. And I want to share this part of the story because I think it's just really important. And for me, this was very traumatic. And I didn't realize that till like I did some EMDR therapy, like several years later. Not several years later, actually a year later. No, that's not true. Several years later, my dates are all mixed up, but several years later. But so even though I knew and we suspected this is what it was, I had been told that many times, but they were waiting for formal confirmation. It was in August, I got referred to the genetics clinic, and where the genetics clinic was where I worked at the time. And so I used to work at Children's Hospital, and that's where the genetics clinic was. And so I didn't think too much of it. I'm like, it's a referral. And so I didn't think to take anyone with me to my appointments. Usually someone was with me, usually my mom or my dad, and mostly my dad. So I didn't think to take anyone. I'm like, well, I'm working that day, so I'll just go to the genetics appointment and then I'll just go to work right after, because it was literally in the same building. And didn't think much of it. I go to my appointment, and I guess the clinic had already gotten the blood work levels, and it was basically confirmed that I had gyrate atrophy. I hadn't seen my retina specialist at this point yet. My appointment wasn't for, I think, a couple of weeks. And so I'm sitting there, and no fault to anyone, but the doctor was just, or whoever it was at the clinic, was just reading my files and was like, yeah, you have this. And I remember just sitting there by myself, and I was so shook. My whole body just shut down. I didn't say anything. I didn't even react. I think I just froze. And I went about my appointment. And as soon as I left the office, and I'm walking now back to go to my work, and I remember just bawling, just completely, utterly sobbing. And I remember I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know what to do, what to think. I just thought, oh my gosh, I'm 25, I'm going to go blind. That's all that was in my forefront at the time. I'm going to go blind. Like, I'm so young. I'm 25. How is this happening? And I was just in so much shock. I was so utterly dysregulated, clearly. And I walked to work. I got to work, and I probably cleaned myself up by that time. And I turned the corner to go in to sign in. And someone had asked, how are you? How's it going? Like we normally do. And when you're already feeling so heavy and the tears are just right there, right up here, you're like, they're so close. And as soon as someone says, how are you? And you're actually not doing okay, it just the floodgates open. That's what happened to me that day. As soon as someone said that, I just bawled. I'm literally bawling my eyes out. And that was kind of it. That's how I found out. And I share that because that was very traumatic for me. And I'm going to weave in different parts of that, of my story, to really emphasize what it's like to go through a medical condition and just going through a diagnosis and how hard that is. And so obviously they sent me home. I went home. I remember calling my mom, and I was so upset. Dad was out of town for work. And I remember calling my mom, and I was just beside myself. And she's like, okay, don't worry, come home, we'll figure it out. We'll call Dad, this and that. I remember driving home, and I just could not stop thinking. The only thing that was in my mind was I'm going to go blind. I'm going to go blind. Oh my God, how is this happening? I couldn't even fathom anything else. And obviously I was going to worst case scenario at that time. And so I drove home, and I remember vividly too, there was a song playing in my car, probably off my playlist. And it was, oh my gosh, Stronger by Kelly Clarkson. And I think part of the lyrics is what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, something along those lines. And I remember listening to that on the drive home, and I was like, no fucking way. That's not possible. This isn't killing me, but how is this going to make me stronger? I feel like I'm at the pit, my downfall. And so it was just really interesting because those thoughts were circulating when I was driving home. Anyway, so that was that. So I got diagnosed, and even from then, my diagnosis, there was just so much happening after that. I got referred to metabolics because of the protein deficiency or the enzyme that wasn't working. So obviously it is a metabolic issue. And so there's no cure, by the way. They had already told me there's nothing we can do for you. There's no cure. And so they referred me to metabolics, and I got connected with a metabolic doctor. I got connected with a dietitian, all the things. And she basically presented me with this option. And she was very clear and upfront from the beginning. She's like, this is very hard. It's very life-changing. Quality of life is not the greatest. And we don't know if it's a success for sure. However, it's something that some patients like to try because it could work. We just don't know. There's nothing guaranteed. Because I have so much protein in my body, they were trying to basically limit my protein intake to see if we can bring down my protein levels. So whatever the amino acid is, I think it was ornithine, if we can help cut down protein and then bring that level down, maybe that'll stop or slow down the progression of the disease. And so I remember her telling me, and again, I really appreciate doctors who have bedside manner and who have empathy and are transparent from the beginning instead of making false promises. So I did really appreciate that. And I just said, I'll think about it. And so I went home. At first, I was like, no way. There's no way I'm doing this. And I was really depressed. Ever since I got diagnosed, I was really depressed and anxious, and everything shifted in me. And I started to lose myself along the way. And even within 6 months, I started to define myself by my vision loss. It was really not okay. Fast forward to now 2013 in February, and I had talked to a few people at the time, some friends and my family. And I was like, well, I guess I have nothing to lose. There's no other cure. It's not completely harmful what they're asking me to do. I might as well try it. Let's just see where this goes. And I decided to go through with it. And so basically, what this was obviously we all need protein for our body to function. And so I was put on a really restricted protein diet. And so the protein that my body needed based off my weight was coming from shakes. And the rest of the protein was very minimal. Most of the protein I had to take was in with these shakes, which are absolutely disgusting, by the way. And then I was allowed to have some free protein, but very minimal. So I had to cut out dairy, like all of it, dairy, meat, eggs. And at that time, I was eating all of that. My diet was shit at that time. And then they were going to do blood work and they were going to test my levels. I decided to do it. It was February 2013 and I went in it and I'm like, okay. And I started drinking the shakes. I don't even know how I did it. They were so brutal. And I started to then count my protein. That's when I really started to label read. I started to learn that through the dietitian and count your protein and track it. And so I started to read nutrition labels and I had to cut out everything, right? And even like plant-based stuff has a lot of protein in it. And so I wasn't allowed a lot of that. So anyways, I did it. And, I'm a very social person, especially at that time. We were always going out. We were eating out all the time. We were just partying and having fun. And my rhetoric started to be when someone would be like, oh, let's go out for dinner. Where should we go? I started to say, oh, it doesn't matter. I'm not eating anyways. You guys pick. Or like, I'm just coming along for the social aspect of it. And so I kept saying that every time. And I'm like, I do have an opinion. I do prefer certain places versus other, or I do have a craving for this food versus that food. But I didn't notice it at the time. It just became so natural because I'm like, well, I can't eat anyways. No big deal. But it was a big fucking deal because internally, psychologically, I was not okay. I was so depressed. I was so anxious. I was miserable. And I felt like I was just going through the motions. And even though on the outside, it might have looked like, oh yeah, like things are great. And this and that, internally, I was not okay. And it took me a while to actually understand that and to realize that. And so anyways, this went on for a couple of months. My levels weren't dropping significantly. And I started to really feel like I was struggling mentally, emotionally, physically. I was drinking more than I normally would have been on occasion, doing drugs here and there, just not my normal. I was trying to numb the pain and nothing crazy, but just drinking more than I would. And I'm like, this isn't me. I didn't want to feel it. I didn't want to feel depressed. I didn't want to feel sad. I didn't want to feel anxious. And so I started to do that. And I remember around this time thinking too, I don't think I can do this. This is really hard. My quality of life is not good. This diet's not worth it. And I don't even know if it's going to work. So it took for me to have a really bad drunken night, if I'm being really honest. I actually haven't shared this with anyone besides whoever was there with me at the time. And my family doesn't even know this, but this is, I think, really important to share because this is a real aspect and real life lived experience of what it's like to go through mental health, like depression, anxiety, but also physical health, to be diagnosed with a chronic health condition and be so out of control and so out of your body and so just like, what the fuck is happening? And so I share this because it is real. And unfortunately, a lot of us do gravitate to unhealthy coping mechanisms because we don't want to feel. And I get it. I did it too until I knew better, until I learned better. I'm like, this isn't it. There's help there. And so anyways, it took for me to have a really bad drunken night. I was out. It was my best friend's birthday. And I just got, and around that time I started to lose a lot of weight naturally just from the diet. And I guess I didn't really know my capacity and I overdid it. And I got really drunk and I don't remember parts of that night. And it was really bad. And I woke up the next morning, thank God my friend at the time stayed with me, slept the night. And I remember waking up and I remember I was sore. I must have fallen. Not must, I did. I fell at some point in the night. And I was bruised like up here. And I remember just waking up and I look and my friend's there and I was like, what happened? And she told me what happened. And I was so embarrassed. I had so much shame. I was so depressed, like so depressed. Obviously, the alcohol is not helping the depression, it's amplifying it even more. I'm in so much shame of like what just happened. And I was hurting. So mentally, emotionally, and then physically, I was hurting because I couldn't even lift my arm. Like, oh, why am I so sore? And that was the beginning of the end in a way, in a lot of ways. And I remember my friend left, she had to leave, and I got up and took a shower. I just didn't want to face the world. My car was parked at my friend's house. I had to go pick it up. I wanted nothing to do with it. I didn't want to face anyone. I was in so much fucking shame and so embarrassed and so just like, what has my life come to in a matter of a year, not even like 6, 7, 8 months. And I was like, this isn't me. I remember going to the bathroom and I went to a shower and I was standing in the mirror looking at myself naked. And I was bruised. I had lost so much weight. I didn't realize how much weight I had lost. So I looked very sunken in. And I remember just looking at myself like I didn't even recognize myself. Oh my gosh, I started crying. I was looking in the mirror and I just started bawling. And I was like, I'm not okay. And I hadn't really shared that with anyone up until that point. I pretended like everything was fine. I can even feel the emotion right now. I just vividly remember that time pretending like, yeah, things are fine, especially at home because I didn't want my parents to worry or my siblings to worry or make it a big thing. And I just kept going and going until that night, until that day when I was looking at the mirror and I was like, who are you? This isn't you. And that was it. I'm like, I'm not okay. Like, fuck the diet. My life, my quality of life is way more important. And I need help. And so that was the first time I spoke of it to maybe some friends. I called the doctor and I was like, forget it. Like, I can't do this. And she was like, yeah, like she got it because most people don't succeed on it. And she recognizes it's life-changing and I just can't, it's not worth it for me. And that was that. That's the first time I think I actually voiced that I need help and that I'm not okay. And I think like at the time through work, like I went to like maybe some counseling through EFAP, the Employee Family Assistance Program. I don't think I was that invested. I don't think it really helped. I think I went for a few sessions and then that was it. And yeah, so that's what happened. And so again, I share all this to be really raw and honest with you that this journey hasn't been easy. I am not sitting here sharing this with you, launching this podcast with you, the story hour, building what I've built with my life just like that. It's not luck. I've gone through it. Like I've really fucking gone through it to get to where I am. And so that was 2013. And from there, it's been an up and down journey. And my visions was getting worse and it was progressing. My mental health just deteriorating over time. And I kept being told that I'm close to not being able to hold a valid driver's license. I was still driving at that time, but I wasn't driving at night because I started to notice my night vision not be great. And so I, on my own, just stopped driving unless I really needed to. And then eventually that fizzled out and I stopped driving at night altogether. Thank God I have family and friends that were able to drive me around. And so the doctors are saying that to me for all this time. All these secondary things were happening. And eventually I had to get cataract surgery. So I got cataract surgery in 2017. Because of my condition, I was developing cataracts. And so the doctor's like, you might as well take them out now. And so underwent that surgery. And I was on all these drops, all these steroids, all these things to reduce the swelling and the inflammation because I also had a lot of inflammation at the time. And so that's kind of was my journey. And I got the cataracts. And around the time that I got cataract surgery, my condition was progressing so rapidly that I couldn't see. I couldn't even see centrally. Like centrally, my vision's pretty okay. It's low vision. I need things to be magnified and whatnot. But around that time, I just had so much inflammation and edema that I couldn't even see clearly. So that was around the time in 2017 that my doctor, I remember going in for testing, and then my doctor said, we've tried everything we can try. There's nothing we can do for you. And this is basically it. You're going to have to learn to live with it. And at that time, he referred me to CNIB, which is the Canadian National Institute for the Blind. And so I don't know why it took them so long to refer me to CNIB, because after that whole appointment, I remember I was a mess. I defined myself with my vision loss. I allowed everything to dictate them, like, hi, I'm Sara, I have vision loss, and I'm going to go blind, full stop, period. And so I got referred to CNIB. They are an amazing organization. I actually work with them. I'm very much connected with them. I started off as a client, and then a volunteer, and now I am contracted and I do coaching, therapy, education, all of that combined with them. But they saved my life in a lot of ways, because I started to learn around that time about grief and loss. So we're now in 2018, it's January, and my doctors have said there's nothing else we can do. I'm really depressed at this point. My vision's progressing at rapid speed, and I'm struggling at work. My driving even during the day, I started to feel uncomfortable, and my commute was about an hour and a half. And I was like, okay, something's not right. Got connected with CNIB, and that's where I started learning about grief and loss. And so I didn't know I was grieving. I didn't know that, because when I thought grief and loss, to me, that is like when someone physical dies and you're grieving the loss of a physical person. I didn't realize that there was a whole other component to grief and loss, which was non-death losses. And so I learned that through CNIB. They have so many programs that help people who are visually impaired. If you're listening to this and you are visually impaired, or you have some sort of eye condition or low vision, or you're blind or partially blind, illegally blind, or anything visual impairment wise, please reach out to CNIB, because they are such a great support. And then I started to just learn about what it means to be visually impaired. And so around that time, I was struggling with my vision. I had to get this big visual field test done. If you've done this test, you know it is the worst test ever. It's that test where you're looking straight and then they're flashing lights at you. So they're testing your peripheral vision. So there's lights coming at you from all over and you're looking straight. So you have to push the button when you see the lights. It's a really hard test. And especially when you don't have peripheral vision. And so I had to do that. And that was in June of 2018. And I didn't pass. And so legally, by law, to be able to hold a valid driver's license, this is in BC, I know that for sure, is that you need to have peripheral vision, both eyes, total of 120 degrees. I was at that time, I believe, reported 70 maybe? I can't remember, but I was really low because my condition had damaged my peripheral vision so much. But it's not something I notice on the day-to-day. It's just when they started doing all this testing and all that stuff is when they realized that. So here we are, June 22nd, 2018. And I remember this day. I remember it like it happened yesterday. I know who was with me. I know what we did, where we went, what the conversation was. And I remember did the test and I hated the test. I always get so much anxiety around it. And the people who do the tests, what are their names? Techs, I just never felt connected to them. I felt they were very rude and I actually had to report them because I just felt very unsafe with them. And I just felt they were just being rude and didn't have any empathy or compassion for someone who's going through vision loss and not being able to see the flashing lights, but then being told that we're doing the test wrong. That's a whole other conversation, but I really struggled every time. And I had to do that test so often. And whatever, I do the test, I come back and the low vision specialist basically had said, you don't meet the requirements to hold a driver's license. And that was it. That was the icing on the cake for all the depression and the anxiety and the turmoil, the physical stress that I was facing. That was the icing on the cake. And I remember my whole life crashed right before me. I was like, this is it. This is the moment. Like, I'm done. I'm going blind. Oh my gosh. And even though the doctors had been mentioning it, my retina specialist kept saying, you can drive, but you're close. And I took that and I ran with that. And I almost feel like I almost believed it and it happened. And I know that might sound crazy, but I do believe that what we focus on and where we put our attention, like it actually matters. And sometimes we can bring those things into our life because we're so hyper fixated on them. I do believe that to be true for me, for my story, because I just all day, day in, day out, that's what I thought about, right? This whole time, panic attacks, anxiety, driving to work, like, oh my God, I just thought I'm just gonna be driving and then all of a sudden I'm gonna lose my vision. That's what I thought for so long. And sleepless nights, crying all the time, all of that comes with depression and anxiety and panic and fear and all the things. And when she said that, I don't think I heard anything past that. She started talking about the functional driving evaluation, where you can work with an OT and if you can compensate for your disability, regardless of being vision loss or not. But they support people who have disabilities and are not medically cleared to drive. But if they can compensate for their disability and need extra accessibility, then they can. And I remember thinking, I wasn't even ready at that point. And that's it. My world turned upside down. June 22nd, 2018. And that was it. I didn't go back to work. I remember going home that day. I was a mess. I remember being so shut down. And I thought my life was over. I now at that point, 31, I think maybe 31. Yeah, 7 years ago. 31. And again, I was like, how am I going to travel? How am I going to live? How am I going to get married? How am I going to have kids? How am I going to do anything? Oh my gosh, what am I going to do without driving? And most people don't realize that, yes, driving is a privilege. I 1000% believe that to be true, especially now. Like before that, no, I'd get up and get in my car and go wherever I wanted to. Didn't think about it. Didn't think about this is actually a privilege to own a car, to have the ability to drive a car, to be able to upkeep a car. I get that now. And at that time, I remember so many things that were happening, and maybe I'll do another episode on this, what not to say to a griever and all of that. But it was really hard. So it was like my independence, my freedom, but then also the realness of, holy fuck, you're losing your vision and you're 31. You have your whole life ahead of you. And it was so hard. It was so traumatic. I couldn't go back to the job I was doing at that time. And just because of my vision, and I was struggling quite a bit. My mental health was really not okay. And oh man, I can even feel the emotion right now. And even just the reliving that and speaking to it. It doesn't have as a strong grip as me as it used to. I wouldn't be able to share this without so much grief and so much just angst about it. But of course, it's still emotional. It still brings up a lot. It's not easy. But to think about that and to think about where I am today and the purpose of me sharing this story and being here with you right now and reliving that is a prime example of when I talk about post-traumatic growth, that I believe that we can take anything that comes our way, the challenges, the hardships, the trials and tribulations, whether that's physical health, mental health, emotional health, that we can come out of it. And it will take time. It'll take grit. It'll take dedication. It'll take commitment. It'll take falling on the ground and being on your hands and knees, but being able to stand right back up, stronger, louder, taller, more confident, more bolder than you were before. And so this is why, if you're still here and you're listening, is why I'm sharing this in the way that I am sharing it. And I'm just speaking from my heart. And again, I had nothing scripted. I didn't really know where this was going to go and what was going to come through, because there's so many parts to my vision loss journey and so many pivotal moments. But this is just me just sharing my heart. This is the whole purpose of this. And this is what I want from others as well. I just really want you to, so you're not feeling alone. There are so many people that are going through vision loss who are all aspects of that. And again, I'll do another episode on that, talking about what it actually means to be visually impaired. It's not black and white like people think it is. People think you're either society, just miseducation, is that people are either blind or they can see. And it's so far from the truth. And I'm hoping I can bring on guests that are different levels of vision loss who can really share their story and let you in on what it's like and to educate the world on and destigmatize it as well. So that's a whole other thing. So I lost my license and that was it. I stopped working. I was at home. I was really severely depressed and anxious. Again, the panic attacks, the depression, the sadness, the fear of the unknown. Like, what does this look like for me? All the things. And the doctors, the Western doctors here basically told me there's nothing else we can do for you. We've done what we can. There's no cure. And all the drops and the steroids and whatever we've done, we've tried. My edema was at the worst. So it wasn't only my peripheral and night vision that was damaged, it was also my central vision started to get really hard. And so I basically couldn't see properly all around. And that was devastating, devastating. But lo and behold, someone mentioned to me, why don't you try seeking alternative treatment? Why don't you go see a naturopath? And it was a friend at the time that had mentioned to me, I know this naturopath. He's helped other people with some serious like chronic health conditions that have now been like fully reversed. Why don't you try it? I was so against it, you guys. Like, I'm very skeptical. Like, I really have to think long and hard before I trust or lean into something. That's just me. And I think that can be a blessing and a curse. But so I was like, no way. What are they going to do? I remember saying this. What are they going to do? If my doctors are saying there's nothing they can do, what's the point of going seeing someone else? I had no idea what holistic health was, what alternative treatment was, what all these different modalities and just leaning into nature was. I was like, there's no way. Very much I was in the system and I'm like, okay, this is my life. It's over and whatever, we'll just figure it out. And then I talked to a few people again and I don't know what to do. And everyone I talked to, my parents included, was like, what do you have to lose? It's either going to benefit you and you're going to gain so much, or you're going to be where you're at. You're not losing anything. And so I sat with that and I'm like, okay. And so I went ahead with it. I went ahead, and that again was another beginning of the end of my story. And this is like such an important part of it because this is where things really started to turn and for the better. And I started seeing a naturopath and I connected with him so well. My first appointment, I went in, I think it was like 3 hours or something. It was all the way in downtown in Vancouver. And it was a full consultation. It was so therapeutic in itself. And he was asking me all the questions like, what was your family history like? What was it like growing up? What's your relationship with your mom? What's your relationship with your dad? What about your siblings? How did you feel? All the things. And I mean, it makes so much sense to me now because I am now a therapist and a coach. And so I get it. And I know how those experiences shape us and how they do impact our health. And so it makes so much sense now. It's why I'm like smiling, because I'm like, oh my gosh, wow, connecting the dots. But I remember in that appointment, and I was annoyed because I was like, I'm here for him to fix my vision. Why is he asking me so many in-depth questions? And I remember asking him, why are you asking me this? I'm here to fix my eyes. What can you do? What can you give me? I'll take anything. Not really, but you know. And he's like, trauma plays a big part in our health. And like the experiences that we have when we're younger and we're growing up, and our belief systems, how we're treated, what our relationships are like, what our health is like, what have you been eating? He asked all the questions, right? And he was like, that impacts our health. And so there's levels of that can be, we can support that by for nutrition, shifting your whole diet and not eating all this inflammatory food. And then on the mental and emotional aspect of things, it's like really healing those aspects of ourselves and really connecting with those parts of ourselves that feel wounded or like just traumatic, maybe not even extreme traumatic experiences, but just experiences where you felt abandoned or shut down or just mistreated. And in our, not even just my household, but in our culture, like no one talks about their feelings. No one talks about their emotions. Like it's pretty toxic for a lot of households. And that's just the reality of it. And no shame, blame, guilt, or anything for anyone. That's just what it is. And that's just how, generations have become, right? You only do what you know. And so all of those things, he started to teach me, and he started educating me on all that. And it just made so much sense. When I had asked him, why are you asking me all this? I'm here for my eyes. And he started linking your nutrition has a big part in it. Like what you're eating, what you're putting in your body is definitely a big cause to why we are dealing with chronic health conditions all around, like just on the scale in general. the mental emotional, I was like, yeah, that makes so much sense. Like what we think about all day, every day. And at that point, I was like just immersed in, I'm going to go blind, I'm going to go blind, my life is over, and blah, 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 all that dialogue. And that's why I'm saying a part of it, I do believe that even like the license and the progression of my disease, because it was happening so rapidly, I feel like a part of me, not that I did it intentionally, but my thoughts created that. And so that's again a whole other conversation too. But that was like my first like into holistic health, into alternative treatment. And I worked with him and then he prescribed all these supplements. Again, everything was natural. I was so used to taking pharmaceuticals, over-the-counter drugs and steroids and antibiotics and all of that, which also play a huge part in our health. And I've now definitely know that for sure. And there's a time and place for pharmaceuticals, 1000%. And I still take them when I need to, but it's not my first means of support or protection. And so I was learning all this stuff from him. I was so in it. I was like, wow. And so he put me on a 6-week regimen. This was now we're in 2018. So June 22nd, 2018 was when everything fell apart. Now we're in October, November. I saw him, had that huge consultation with him. He put me on this whole 6-week regimen, like all these drops, I think liquids, pills, all natural, derived from the earth, from plants and nature and just traditional Chinese medicine. And for a lot of you, that's going to sound weird, but honestly, it helped me. And I really would encourage to put the judgment to the side when it comes to that. I will be speaking more on that. I'm actually going to do a full episode on my treatment in India, which I will get to. So within 3 weeks, I started to feel different. I started to really feel different. And to be honest, at first I was like, this is in my head. Because I started to just feel lighter. I felt this like weight lift off my shoulder. And if you've ever been there, it's hard to explain. You just know something just feels like, whoa, like you can actually like breathe. And I felt that. And then I was like, okay. And then I was skeptical. Oh, it can't just be this. And then I started to be able to see clear. The inflammation was lifting. I didn't know the inflammation was lifting at that time, but I can see things clear. I had my font really big on my phone. Everything had to be magnified, etc. And something's different. In my mental clarity, I didn't feel so foggy in my brain and so heavy in the depression. Just within 3 weeks. I kid you not. This is like true story. And I don't know, I was just like, something's weird. And I just let it be. We're now into close to the cycle. And I remember being so vividly, it was December 31st, 2018. And I was at a restaurant. And so normally when I was at a restaurant, it was hard for me to read menus. It still is hard for me to read menus, but especially at that time, I would have to either ask someone to read the menu for me, or I'd have my phone and have the flashlight out, or I'd have my magnifier. I couldn't read the menu, especially if it was really small print. And that day, I was able to read the menu okay. It was fine. And so I'm sitting with a friend at the time, and we're having just really good conversation. And I was telling her, something's different. Like these supplements I'm taking and this whole session with my naturopath, I'm like, something is different. I feel lighter. I feel different. I don't know what it is, but I just felt this whole new spark. I felt revived because from what I had gone through. And I remember telling her that, and she was one of my really good friends, and she knows my whole story. And she was like, it's funny that you're mentioning that because I've been watching you and you've been reading the menu fine, and you haven't had to ask me to read it for you. When she said that, I just stopped and I was like, you know what? Something's changed. This is working. I feel different physically, mentally, emotionally, even spiritually. I wasn't even tapped into that at that point. But I felt it. I don't know what it was. And when she validated that, was like, yeah, like you didn't need help. And I said to her, I'm like, this is working. I need to lean into this. I need to lean into alternative treatment, into holistic health. And I did. From then on, I very well connected with my naturopath, and I went through all these cycles and really leaned into that. And that led me to go to India to do alternative treatment. My mom found this facility. It's an Ayurvedic eye hospital in Kerala, India, so the south of India. And it took me a lot. I had a lot of resistance, a lot of anxiety prior to that. But after that time where my friend and I had that conversation, and this was at the 6-week end of my first cycle with my naturopath, I remember going to my parents, we need to go to India. Let's just do this. Let's lean into it. I was terrified. I was so scared. I had no idea what I was doing, but I knew something in my heart was like, you need to do this and you need to do it alone. I went, my parents, my mom, dad, me, we all went to India. We all went to the facility together. And I told my parents, I'm like, I need to do this on my own. I don't know what it was, but my soul and my heart was telling me, like, terrified. I've never been one to be by myself at that point. I was terrified in a brand new, not brand new country, because I'm from India, or like live in India, but or my parents are from there, but like I'm in a very different part of India, completely different from where I'm used to being. But something in me was like, Sarah, you need to do it alone. And that was hard. That was really hard for my mom to be apart from me. That was really hard for my dad. It was a lot to be like, you're going to be here for 3 weeks, and the treatment had to be 3 weeks. I had no idea what the treatment was going to be. I just had a consult with them, sent them my reports, whatever. And then we just leaned into it. And something in my heart and soul said, Sarah, you need to do this without your parents. And part of the reason no one can fix this for me. I was having so much inner turmoil and dialogue and just depression. And I don't know. I was like, my parents can't do this, and I won't be able to fully be with myself if my parents are around, because we're going to try to protect each other and our emotions are all going to get entangled with one another. And I don't know what it was. I had no idea about emotions, feelings, trauma, grief, and none of it really. But something in me was like, you need to do this alone. I spent 3 weeks at the eye hospital. It changed the trajectory of my whole entire life. Not only did I learn and get educated on Ayurvedic treatment and lifestyle and practices and what they're rooted in, which goes back centuries, way back in India. Again, I'm going to do another podcast on this, but it was just so pivotal. 3 weeks by myself. I went off social media. Again, something in me was like, you need to just cut everything out. You need to really turn inwards. And I was in a foreign place, all this different medication. I don't know what it was, but I just dove into journaling and meditation, which I didn't even know what meditation was, but I just Googled a bunch of stuff and downloaded it so I didn't have to be online. And that changed everything. I really had a big spiritual awakening during that time. And I got all the treatment I did. And I'm going to talk more about this in a separate episode. That's why I'm fast forwarding it. But it changed my life. And anyways, I came back. And of course, with alternative treatment and holistic health, things take longer. They don't happen like this, right? Because you're actually dealing with the root cause of the issue. You're not just suppressing it with a drug or an antibiotic or a supplement or like a steroid or anything. You're really getting to the root cause, which takes longer. So I come back a month, 2 months, I started to notice a really big difference in my vision. The inflammation had gone down quite a bit because now I was able to see. Everything got clear. I remember being on my phone and reading something, and I could read it so clearly. I remember sitting in the basement of my parents' house, and I remember just being like, oh my God. I remember running upstairs. My mom's in the kitchen. I think my dad was in the kitchen on the island. And I was like, you guys, I can see this. Am I going crazy? So I actually tested myself and decreased the font size, increased the font size, and I could see it. And I was like, oh my gosh, you guys, this is working. Something's changing. I can see. It was so profound. And I just was so high on life, on an emotional, mental, spiritual level. Oh my goodness, there is something more. That's when I started to really lean into God and the universe and spirit. And I am not alone. There are other forces here that are guiding me and protecting me. And oh my gosh, I was wide open, just so expanded. And that moment when I remember running upstairs, like running up the stairs, Dad, Mom, I will never forget that moment. It was just, you guys, it was so pivotal. And that is just the power of everything that I've been sharing with you today, everything that I want to inspire and empower you, but really also the power of alternative treatment, the power of holistic health. I am 1000% on board with it. I never was. Again, I only started that journey in 2018, and here I am now, spring of 2019, and I'm in it. I'm sold because of my personal lived experience. because I saw what my vision was before, what my mental health was before, what my emotional health was before, what my inner dialogue was before, all the like extra weight I was carrying physically. I had dropped so much weight around that time, and it wasn't just diet and exercise. It was all that trauma and grief that was stored in my fucking body that I was able to release through all this time. All of it. It just made so much sense. And then to now see who I was after physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, looking at myself and being like, wow, and seeing a whole different version of myself. You can't deny that. This is the power of going back to our roots, going back to nature, going back to basic living. And so that was 2019. And I felt, honestly, I was on top of the world. And in that same year, I, for the first time, dove really like intentionally and deeply into therapy at that time. So here we are. I'm still like unsure. I'm not working. I'm on disability. Like all these things were happening. And I was in therapy. That's where I did EMDR. I really connected with the therapist I had and really worked on some of those earlier traumatic events with my diagnosis. And I remember at that time going, well, I can't go back to my old job. What does that mean? What am I going to do? And I was really in fear and anxiety at the same time. What does this look like? What does my life look like? And I'm high on life at the same time. So you have both ends of the spectrum. And we talk about life is a both and, not an either or. It's like I was so high on life up here about my vision, about my mental, emotional health. And then also, okay, well, what does this mean for my future? Like, what am I going to do? How am I going to make money? All the things. And so I was sitting in this contrast through all that. And I just knew, I'm like, I want to work with people. How do I use my story to empower and share? That's always been my thing. And around that time, that's where things started shifting. I eventually went back to school, became a therapist and a coach and an educator, along with pursuing a new career and just venturing out into this new industry. I also, with all the work that I was doing, all the therapy, all the personal development, the self-care, the healing on all levels, physical, mental, emotional, I was able to come to a place where I actually was able to heal a lot or aspects of my vision. And I really was able to, with everything that I was doing, was able to reduce the inflammation in my eyes. So I started to see clear. And that was such a big pivotal moment for me. My doctor had mentioned a functional driving evaluation where you're connected with an OT and they work with you really closely. And so as I was healing, as I was growing, as I was evolving, I also started to feel confident, and I started to really look into what this was going to look like. Could I get my driver's license back? And so I reached out to my doctor. I asked her, what does this entail? I want to be able to drive again. What are the chances? What's the whole process? And so long story short, I went into the whole functional driving evaluation. Because I had healed aspects of my vision, I was able to reverse the inflammation fully. Actually, till this day, my inflammation has completely been reversed. And again, that's all through diet, nutrition, therapy, mental, emotional, physical. And I was able to get my license back. So after 3.5 years, I was able to go through the testing. They do an in-clinic test, and then they also test you on the road. I was able to get my license back. So I do have my license back. I'm currently have a valid driver's license. They do reviews and audits every few years, depending on what's happening with my vision. So it is a little bit of a touch and go. And for now, I'm really thankful and really grateful that I was able to get my driver's license back, to get my freedom back, to get my independence back, to just get my life back, to be honest, to pick up and go wherever I wanted and not having to rely on the system or anyone else. And so I don't drive at night still. So I do actually have to rely on other means of transportation. But honestly, just even during the day, I'm so grateful that I'm able to drive. And so just with all of that, not just with the pursuing a new career, but just being able to overcome all of what I was going through, the mental and emotional turmoil as well, and to be able to heal aspects of my vision, it's been so profound. And all of that work that I put into it on so many different levels, it's been so challenging and so hard. But here I am. I just wanted to really just share my story on here in one sitting because I've shared it in post and in writing, but this is the first time I'm actually sharing it like this. I thought it would be a good kickoff to the Story Hour podcast to really let you in on me and my life and what it's taken me to get to where I am. And there's still so much that I do want to share and want to get into, and just so many nuances, but I hope this really lands and provides you a context to what it's like to be human and the challenges that we all face. And if you're going through something, I see you, I hear you, I feel you. And so just another point that I do want to make, because it ties into the purpose of this podcast, is that in 2019, so after the time when I started to notice difference with my vision and the naturopath cycle, something sparked inside me and said, Sarah, you need to share your story. Again, I was oblivious to all the personal development, the therapy, the coaching, education, all of it. I had no idea. I wasn't even in school at that time. But something in me was like, Sarah, share your story. And it was, if you're depressed, if you're anxious, if you're having panic attacks, if you're struggling, someone else must be too. And if you can just share your story to make them feel less alone, just even if you hit one person that can resonate with your story and be like, oh my gosh, like she gets it. I'm not alone. That's all that it was. I was terrified to share my story at that point. But something in me was like, Sarah, you got to do it. You got to do it. I wrote this whole, I think, 5 posts on Instagram sharing my story. And I was raw like I was today. I was real. I really shared the depth of what it was, of what I had gone through the last X amount of years and months. And I shared my story. And I remember vividly, again, basement of my parents' house. And I remember shaking almost when I hit send. And I had to do that 5 times. I had to do that 5 times because my caption was so long. And at that time, Instagram, you couldn't do multiple posts. I remember shaking. The feedback I got back from that post was so overwhelmingly, like I was filled with gratitude and love and appreciation. I didn't know that it was going to reach that many people, in the sense of I was starting getting messages. Oh my gosh, I've been struggling with anxiety for so long. Thank you for putting words to what it feels like to not be okay, and to actually acknowledge that this is real life and we all struggle with it. The amount of messages I got, it just came like pouring through, and I was overwhelmed. I didn't know what to do with myself. I was just being me. Here I am. This is me. This is my story. And that was the start of where the Story Hour honestly began. So the name of this podcast couldn't be more relevant and more related and more connected than it truly is. So I shared that story, and I remember ending that post with, this is me, this is my story. And from there, I started to share aspects of my vision, my journey. I started to share my treatment in India. I started to share just other aspects of my life and my journey, really, again, vulnerably, authentically. So I've been like this. This is me. I've always been like that. I don't know how to be any different. I can't pretend things are okay when they're not. And so from then, I remember I just kept sharing my story, always ending it with, this is me, this is my story, part 2. This is me, this is my story, part 3, so on and so on. And I don't know where it ended. And around that time, I started going back to school. Then I really started learning about emotions, feelings, thoughts, trauma, grief, all the things. And I was just so obsessed and so high on life. And I've always been about the storytelling. We all have a story. We all come from somewhere, but it doesn't define us. We all have stuff. We all have shit. Whether you believe it or not, even the most successful people, even the most like rich, wealthy people, even the people that you think have the best relationships and the best romance and intimacy and just all of it, they don't. We all have stuff. And I really want to focus on that and emphasize on that, because we're all in this together, whether we want to believe it or not. And this is the whole part of this. And a big key aspect to the Story Hour podcast is the community, connection, and collective healing. If you've been with me for a while, I'm rooted in that. And I think it's so important and it's so needed in our world today. This is what I want the Story Hour to be about. I want it to be community. I want to build community around this. I want you to be a part of a community where you feel safe, where you feel valued, and you feel seen and heard and understood, and not judged, criticized, dismissed, censored, discriminated. That's not what this is about. This is a community I want to build, connection, We are hardwired for connection through and through. And so what other better way to connect than to be real and honest and to really listen to each other, to really understand one another, not for our differences, but for our shared experiences. We are way more similar than we are different. Whatever the world tells you, whatever the news tells you, whatever the government tells you, whatever anyone tells us, we are way more similar than we are different. We need to start coming together on that and stop the divisive language, the discrimination, the censorship, the bullying, the talking shit about someone because they have a different view than you, shutting them down, kicking them out of your family events, friends events, none of that. If anything, if we have learned anything these last 5 years, community is so important. And so is connection. So is connection. And so this is a big part of this show. I'm really passionate about it and about the community, the connections, the collective healing, and my place in the world. What do I want? How do I want to contribute to the world, to healing, to peace, to love, to acceptance, to diversity? And that means diversity, not just color, age, race, but also thoughts, beliefs, values. We can all be together and not have all the same beliefs and values. We've been pinned against each other. And so this is, again, the community connection, collective healing, the third C, collective healing. When we come to spaces like this and we allow ourselves to be vulnerable and raw and connect with one another, let the guards down, de-armor our heart, and allow one another into our life and to really just understand, to listen, and to learn, that's where healing happens. Of course, healing happens individually. There's power in one-to-one work. Absolutely. I am a big advocate for that. But I also know that sometimes that's not enough. And a lot of times, especially right now in 2025, we need each other. We need community. We need connection. And the power of sharing our stories together is something that is out of this world. That's where the healing really happens. And believe it or not, we're all very interconnected. You might think your story is so unique, no one else could possibly ever be going through what you're going through. I will bet you and argue that there will be so many other people that have similar experiences with you. Of course, no one's going to have the exact same experience, exact same feelings and emotions and play out of the experiences. But there's a lot of parallels in our stories. And I would even argue with me sharing what I shared today and me sharing my story with you all, that I can imagine there's hundreds, if not thousands of you that can relate to what I shared. And it's not about me. It actually has nothing to do with me. Take me out of it. But the story, health conditions, depression, anxiety, mental health, relationships, depth, intimacy, love, grief, loss, rebuilding our lives, feeling like there's nothing left and that we're so isolated and so alone. This is what I hope you take out of this episode by me sharing my story, is that we're not alone. And I remember feeling so alone and so isolated in my journey way back 7 years, 8 years ago, like really alone. And I just really want to create this space because I feel like it's so missing and so needed in our world today. And this is the story hour. This is what it's about. And I just went with the flow. I had no intention of how long this was going to be or what it's going to look like. I just rolled with it. I know it's over an hour, but I'm also I don't want to fall into the social media crap and the algorithms. And just because everyone else is doing it this way, a lot of people cut off their podcasts out below the hour mark because people aren't going to tune in and this and that. That's not what I'm about. I crave depth and intimacy. I crave it so badly, and I know you do too. I know everyone does, because it allows you to connect on that deeper level. We're not meant for the dopamine hit, for 15-second clips. So if you can't sit here and watch or listen to a podcast, and not even mine, any podcast or anything that's going to inspire you to do better, to be better, to change, to live a better life, if you don't have time for that, then there's something wrong. And that's just the honest truth. This is the whole point. We are meant to live and to grow and to learn. So if you have time to scroll, you're on your phone, numbing, mindless shit that doesn't even matter, you should have time and you should make your priorities where it's going to help you grow and evolve. I want to leave you with that. And so this was episode 1. I'm excited for the next episode. I'm not sure exactly when that'll be launching. I know it's summer, and so things are a bit busy. I do want to bring guests on. I do have some people in mind, but I do recognize that it's summer and that it might be hard to get people's schedules together. However, this is only the beginning. This is only the beginning. We are going to create something really magical with this space, and I hope so anyways. And I really want you to be here with me. And please reach out if you have a story and if we're in alignment and there's connection and you feel safe and you want to share your story of where you were and how you were able to overcome it. I really want to hear from you, and you don't even have to be in my circle. I really want to open this space for everyone to be able to share their experiences and to really inspire and empower the world, to inspire me, the audience, the community that I'm trying to build here. And so I can write these in the show notes once I figure out how to do that. But if you want, in the meantime, you can reach out to me. I'm active on social media. My handle on Instagram is at SARA.S.Jaswal, Jaswal. I'm most active on Instagram. And then, of course, the Story Hour podcast on Instagram as well. It'll be on TikTok. It'll also be on YouTube. I will upload this recording to YouTube, and then wherever you listen to your podcast, that's the plan, is to have it out everywhere. But if you want to personally reach out to me, you can either email me. It's probably the best option. Sara@sarajaswal.com. SARA@SARAJASWAL.com. So you can reach me there. Honestly, if you just want to say hi, if you just want to connect, if you feel like you would want to come on to the show and have a conversation and talk about your trials and tribulations and wanting to just use your voice and to share it with the world, to inspire us, to empower us, for all of us to take back power and to rewrite our stories. And I would love that. I'd love to connect with as many as you as I can. And so thank you. And that is a wrap for episode 1. Thank you for tuning in. The Story Hour podcast, Voices Unscripted, Stories Rewritten, with your host, Sara Jaswal.